Thank you and welcome to Lady Blerds Sings the Blues. You got your girl here sometimes, V.
Kylie Toosmart.
Also,
Prowess a testament.
You got your girl here sometimes. So I'm really excited to be here for MAGWest. I mean, this has been something I've been looking forward to all year. Also, by the way, that trailer that happened before us, that was a panel that happened, I believe it was on Friday, which was for Depowerable Mega Power Games. Thanks, Antonio, for delivering that great content. So for those who are watching those trailers, as a reminder, those are actual games, so go buy them on Steam. Anyway, we're here to talk about some stuff.
Real stuff.
What stuff, Kylie? Stuff. Tell me what stuff is.
We are going to talk about representation.
Yeah?
Yeah. I know for some people that may seem like a heavy topic, but it's something that we all face in all of our fandoms. And I just want to make sure that we're all here, like, solidly to come together and have a good time.
Yeah, we're going to be educated, just a little educated, informed. It's going to be maybe a little uncomfortable, just a smidgen, but it's okay because this is the type of thing that we have to talk about because it's a collective experience with all of us. We all have a little bit of pushback here and there as Black women, as Black people, and we have to make sure that with space that we need to create, we make the space for ourselves. So, I mean, Kylie, tell me about this
conversation, the things that have been happening. So I think if you have not lived in a bubble for the past few years, you would know that conversations about race and around race are definitely coming to the forefront of everybody's lives. It's not something that you can easily turn away from now. It's everywhere. We're all talking about it. We're all experiencing it and seeing it in our everyday lives. And I think it's most important in spaces that we come together to escape some of the trauma and drama that we experience in our real lives in these beautiful con spaces, that we talk about it and make sure that we all can get a positive experience in these spaces. And what we've seen historically is that
it needs a lot of work. It still needs a lot of work. What do you think, Prowess?
Absolutely. Everything is a work in progress, but being able to redefine the culture as it's being sort of still created is such an important conversation. It really allows us to shape what that will look like in the future. So work in progress, but we're going to get there.
Yeah. And to be clear, it's not individual. It's not just Prowess. It's not just me. It's not just Kylie. It's also these headlines that you'll see, such as the Black cosplayers breaking racial boundaries of some ... followed by some story because some dummy has decided to just be condescending and not let us express the way that we need to express ourselves in these spaces.
Or conversely, that is just so new and people are like, oh my gosh, this is such a new thing that somebody is actually out here breaking barriers. And anytime you break barriers, you get positive feedback, you get negative feedback, you get some meh feedback.
You get some meh. Sometimes some meh feedback. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, so we just want to make sure that we just create the dialogue, but also celebrate the successes.
Yes, definitely celebrate the successes, because at the end of the day, this whole panel is about growth in our community.
Yeah, growth. Some solutions need to happen, but growth.
Solutions are good. Oh God, Mr. Popo.
Speaking of Mr. Popo.
A prime example of why talks are needed.
Yeah, a prime example of why talks are definitely needed. Mr. Popo, we love you, dude, but we'll get to you in a second. Yeah. So just to outline this whole conversation, I just wanted to break it down because people like formulas, people do like presentations. We love to show and tell. So historical context and problematic portrayal.
Hello. So what is it?
Why? Oh no, I'm just saying, why do we care?
Why do we care?
And then how do we overcome?
Why do we care?
So, Paris, can you help us give us a snapshot on what this means here?
Sure. So one of the things that we know, right there, we think about culture, but anime is Japanese animation is certainly influenced by culture. It also has influences on culture. So we want to make sure, as we're being representative being diverse and inclusive is really part of just the standard monologue or conversation these days. It is a requirement. And a lot of the times when these characters were originally created and sort of some of the animation were created, this kind of sort of wokeness in the world was not there. So as we sort of become more woke and more aware, we want to make sure that the industry, right? Anime itself is not a monolith. It's its own industry, but there's a bunch of genres to choose from and a bunch of cultures. You customize based on your personal interests, what you're into as an individual. So you should also be able to see yourself, right, in this space and really be able to look at that.
Exactly. Yeah. And as you can see in this diagram that I here, I have a pretty good rough sketch of what animation has kind of looked like early when in its conception to about now. And so what you see here is, and I know, don't get me wrong, for those who are probably like, wait, I thought this was a music and gaming con. No, trust, this articulates into video game development as well. But with its conceptions of like design and character design and how people lead the story and what that looks like, 1900s, you see all these names here, like Katsuda Sasin, Namakura Gatana, to, in the 1940s, Spider and Tulip, or Meguro no Adventure, to Astro Boy. Like, as the years progress, you can see like mostly the main characters here, or the leading figures, or even the leading romantic figures, are either white or some sort of white passing westernized, and don't get me wrong, like these characters didn't do anything to us. Like, with us, like we feel like there's a notable animation such as Dragon Ball Z that we love and adore and have always loved and adore, such as like Sailor Moon or Cowboy Bebop or Akira. Like we love these things. Like, it's not saying that there's zero influence, but as you can see, for those who are like, in the community of people of color or Black, and also Black people, like where's our time to shine as the lead character or as a example?
Not even as a lead character, I feel so much, but not like, can we just not be portrayed always as the villains? Or, you know what I mean? Yeah. So if we're looking at like historical context, and you're looking at how darker skinned characters are really like legitimately set up to be the villain archetype. You know what I mean? It's like, that's how you immediately knew that a character was bad. Like, oh, they're Black or they're a person of color. You know what I mean? So, and then the characterization, we will get into that definitely in some deeper slides about how these images negatively impacted. So it's not even just that you have a lack of diversity, but that the images and representations that are there were like actively negative.
Right. And you're like, what, but where's the proof? Where is it? Like, I don't understand what you guys are talking about. These are just cartoons. These are just fictional characters. But, fiction is influenced by real life and real life depictions. I mean, I don't think there's anything far-fetched from just saying that. No. So moving along, let's take a look at this list. Same era, same, like, I'm not gonna say the same titles, but like, this is all some from basically very similar like stream of line of like how animation has grown for those who are, Black, or those who are brown, or those who are, Islander, like, you name it, like whatever it's depicted as not white, this is what our character development has kind of looked like. Versus, like I said, if we go back, characters looked very much so like the main beautiful, like,
human depictions,
like just some sort of depiction of like they're there for like to lead, and then you go to the next thing and then you see the difference.
Yeah.
So what do you think, Paris?
I think it's a little bit of cross-pollination as we've grown. And right, there's just more people who are engaging in this content. There's more people who are creating content now. So we know that the content creation is important to being able to draw and represent characters that look like themselves, right? So it's now people bringing that into play. So there's Black animators now, there's Black animating studios now. I think that has certainly cross-pollinated into what has already been existing, but also sort of in the present sphere, but also in future. So there's not this like satirical examination of what it is to be Black either, or the minstrel depictions of Blackness either.
Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I love that you talked about like the minstrel depictions, right? Because even minstralism, some people think of it as like a direct form of like blackface, but minstralism was again another presentation of actually like European and white people imitating Black artists. And we had this culture of entertainment still, using Black bodies as entertainment and not giving artists recognition as human beings and people. And so it's like you would take a real live artist, a real life musician, a real life, jazz artist, which was where a lot of these images are coming from. And then you take that and you create a persona around it. You add your own negative intonations into it, and that is the packaged image that then goes out to the world. And we see that here definitely in how animation had developed, and even seeing a lot of depictions of Blackness. A lot of people will say, well, it's Japanese animation, so why would we expect to see portrayals of people of color? And it's just like, it's not that you don't see portrayals of people of color, and it's not that there aren't people of color in Japan either. Even historically, like Africa's giant, you know what I mean? Like they had interactions early on. But what you are getting here is this one specific image that's based off of negative stereotypes that then gets accepted worldwide as a truth about a multifaceted group of people, right?
Yeah. And, looking at this list here, like, let's talk about it. Like, the last list had what I keep, and I sound redundant, but redundancy is key to just make sure it kind of sticks a little bit. But these characters, 1930, that's like, if you're looking at that picture there, that's a person who's part of a larger village, but like, the large lips, the big eyes, the super dark skin, right. This character in like stream of the animation was kind of depicted as someone who wasn't polished or intelligent, just more reactive. And it's just, it's kind of just how animations just kind of depicted those who are of color. And also this wasn't a main character, this was a side character. If you go into Spider and Tulip, like that's relevant to the times that Spider is wearing a pork pie hat, which is very close to like, if anybody knows the saxophonist Lester Young, who is a Black saxophonist, he wore a pork pie hat. So it's very relative to the style of the 1940s. However, again, not human, not a main character. Spiders are typically kind of creepy crawly, like not something to kind of be there. And then you go down to this next character who's depicted again with the gollywog features. And that's not even a boy or a human, it's a mole. And it wasn't until the 1960s is when then you start to see depictions of Black folk with the same like big lips, big eyes, but now they're like more of a side character or like a masculine character, not really a main character or someone to lead the pack or somebody that would be like, oh, I'm following the story because of this person. You're not really. So, and then it's up until maybe the 1990s is when you start getting realistic depictions. And then finally is when in the 2000s where, Black characters start becoming like a catalyst as part of the story. That's something that drives the story, not really supplements just a single episode or just a moment to decorate what's going on. Like, and then also women. Can we talk about women?
Let's talk about women.
Yeah.
Let's talk about sex, baby. Gender. The looks on everyone's faces. She's going off the rails, guys.
Gender. I mean, don't get me wrong. We are going into a time now that we're welcoming genders of beyond the binary. But I mean, let's kind of take a step backwards real quick to talk about the binary, where women who are women of color were not considered beautiful,
right?
Or those who were feminine and considered as women were not considered beautiful or elegant. There's not really much women here in the previous years, even like the times of like the animation of like Tom and Jerry. Like if you think about that, like it's always just like loud, like not eloquent. Like it's just like, why do we have to be perceived as just angry and masculine and like taking charge all the time? Like, don't get me wrong, I want to take charge.
I want to take charge.
We want to take charge. But it's like, when do we actually become considered to be beautiful and like the other characters that you see in this previous slide? Like,
or like well-rounded
features. Exactly. Yeah, slender features. Like, let's make sure that we're plus size women, but let's just make sure,
refined features. I cannot get over like how well like Black hairstyles are being like venerated now in animation. And like skin tones, all these different like beautiful skin tones are being venerated now in animation. It's like, and that just wasn't something that you saw like even in like these early slides, like you were literally just like solid pitch black or you were very dark brown. And like now we're starting to really see like a full spectrum in terms of like even tonal differences in hair, like really letting Black people be a part of the fantasy, right? Because that's something that every single person, when we're watching anime, like you want to be part of the fantasy, you want to be part of the story. And if all that you're seeing like reflected back to you in terms of like what your image is in this reality in this show is something that's like negative or ugly, it does affect you psychologically. Like even if you're not actively paying attention to it, you know what I mean? It does other you in a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a community where we're already all feeling slightly othered, like by the very nature that we like anime and that we like manga and that we are like weebs, you know what I mean? So just another reason why this topic and conversation is important, and that people actually like doing the creative work to make this better and more inclusive experience and fandom for everyone is like so important.
But it did take work.
Lots of work, years and years of work.
It took lots and lots of work. Like, and this is all relative. It wasn't, these movements didn't just exclusively happen for development of fiction characters. Like,
what? Civil rights was not so that I could have Afro Samurai? Are you sure? Martin Luther King said, I have a dream.
I have a dream that I would see some Afro Samurai. Yikes.
One day, the Irish Joe will exist.
Oh my gosh.
That was definitely in there. That was a footnote. Yes.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So Prowess, what is your take on like just historical movements that may, that influence other areas of genres with people? Like, what do you think?
So I feel like, I throw back to sort of the thing I was mentioning about like Japanese audiences and how they saw Black people in times prior to now, right? There is a level of what the American media sort of put out as through those negative attitudes towards Black people and negative depictions. And so, right, it's picking up on the depictions that we see. And so stereotypes become, explicit because and pervasive because people that's what they see. So it's sort of like not recognizing that I'm contributing to some offensive or problematic portrayal. And now there's, I think through massive education, but seeing how much BIPOC audiences have adapted and become a part of the construct now, it changes a lot because right now those character designs, we saw yesterday, Anaris Quinones on here yesterday with us. And I think, right, like as you see more Black voices, as you have to depict characters that then look like the voices that are even voicing the characters. So it's kind of growing because, to be honest, what I feel like comes down to the bottom line, right? Like everything centers around at some point revenue. And if you want to, inclusion just means more people being able to see themselves and purchase and buy, right? So it's like, I want to buy this. I'm going to popularize these images. But it's learning what those racist implications are. And I feel like now the creators have gotten a sense of that. So now we're in a place of where characters as they're being created, the aesthetic, like we talked about, the massive lips and the huge nose and the musculature and all of that stuff has changed and softened because recognizing that I feel like Black women in the portrayals of it we still have so much room to grow. We're sort of working on that now. as we go through, you know, a lot of the like canary character, a lot of the things that are like are changing, but we still have some form. Anti-Blackness still exists. You know, don't get me wrong, but we're coming now with people being able to say I'm more woke. And of course, again, I take that back to how people are consuming. Yeah.
No, that's exactly it. Like how people are consuming. That's key knowledge right there, because the anti-Blackness also exists with even our own community is something that we need to overcome, because we don't see ourselves in these spaces where we are in the light, as in like we are shining. Yes. And so like you'll hear stories here and there where like even elementary school kids are fighting their identities because they don't know what's being perceived as like accepted. Like little girls drawing, like, you know, there was a story I saw on Twitter a couple of days ago where a teacher was like, hey, draw something that you guys feel is beautiful. And it was this little Black girl who drew a blonde woman with blue eyes and said, that's beautiful, and said that I'm not beautiful. And like the teacher had to like record scratch the whole session and just be like, all right, baby, we got to have a heart to heart here. Like we need to talk about what is beautiful and what you are eating up through media to be perceived otherwise, you know? And so like, it just, you know, this is the stuff that happens on TV and it's the mainstream and newspapers, when newspapers are popular, to your black and white television, to your, what is that called? Like Technicolor. I got some Judy Garland here. Sorry, I'll stop. But anyway, but no, it's what we're eating up. And then now it's Instagram, right? So Instagram, we're eating up all these ideals of beauty. Yes. Luckily, we have a lot of Black influencers to help us identify what beauty is, but there's still the Jenners and the Kardashians and all this stuff that is being perceived as the mainstream. And you can see the influence with a lot of like makeup artists and all that jazz. So that's our new media of what we're kind of fighting right now. I know that's a little bit of a tangent, but like we need to remember like ourselves, our authentic selves are beautiful, but we need to make sure that we're identifying that with all colors of skin, not just one or singular standard.
But also want to take this time to talk about intersectionality, right? Because we are coming clearly from this lens of being Black women or plus size women. We are all occupying this space, but I know that there are many people who are like watching this panel who are other just people of color, people of the global majority, who are also recognizing a similar struggle in terms of representation for themselves in media. And so this is something that you can take an idea and apply it like everywhere, right? Because we all want to be seen as human beings and included in a positive light. Yeah. So definitely like we're coming at this as Black women in America specifically. I think
we need to be more versatile than what we're being depicted as, right? Like we're not masculine, we're not, and don't get me wrong, I understand the gauges of storytelling, but we don't have to be like a bucket of trauma all the time on the screen.
Exactly.
Like we are more than
we
that.
We have happy stories too.
We have hella happy stories.
We're successful.
Oh my God. So again, still
look at my glow up.
Look at this. Look at my, okay.
Wow.
I need to like, can I be a narcissist? Am I allowed to be a narcissist right now?
She said, how dare you?
How dare I?
Bossy.
All right, moving along. So speaking about women, again, I can speak on behalf of Paris, Kylie, and myself. We do support those who have pronouns beyond the binary.
Exactly.
We are very supportive of that. We don't want to make sure we are making this message right here very, very clear that what we're trying to say here is that we're not knocking they, them, or androgyny or anything like that, but we do want to bring up the subject matter that with this graphic here, it was a good take. Yes. It was a good take about like accepting different types of folks. But the thing that caught our attention here was the graphic with the person with the fro, the darkest skin in the picture. We wanted to hyper focus on this one where it's like this person is considered they, them, and not an opportunity to be considered she, her. And the reason why we're fixated on this is because of the fact that Black women, especially darker complected Black women, have historically been knocked their femininity over the years. And so with this graphic, sure, the intention was a good step, but it's still reinforcing the narrative. So I don't know, Kylie, can you help me out with that?
Yeah, so when I first saw this, I was like, oh, I don't really see a problem with it, right? And then the more I looked at it and the more I sat with it and the more I thought about it, I was like, well, this is exactly why representation matters, right?
Yep.
Because if the only ideas that you have been fed over the years are that it is natural for darker skinned people even to be more they, them and less even gendered. And I feel like this ties along with even seeing people as people to begin with, right? Like getting recognized of being seen as a woman, as a Black woman historically, like all the way back to that Ain't I a Woman poem, right? You had, we're getting deep, we're getting deep, but this is like some of the issues that we are even seeing within feminism, right? This split between like white feminism and Black feminism, and how movements were developing and moving forward in terms of representation, and this idea that including Black women in your movement would have been a detriment to your movement, is an idea that's still very clear and present as we move forward, right? And this is why so many movements are trying to separate themselves from one another in terms of intersectionality, because they feel like one cause is worthier than the other, which is ridiculous because at the end of the day, we are all trying to get these human rights, but you have to realize that there's some points where it's human rights and it's rights that affect people's lives, their daily living versus like emotional comfort. And so like we have to recognize things that exist on a sliding scale. So for me, looking at this slide, at first, it was just like possibly an emotional discomfort. But then the more that I looked at it, the more I realized like, no, for somebody, this is life and death. The fact that this woman is automatically always being portrayed as they, them, automatically always being portrayed in a more masculine light, in a less soft light, and a less light that is worthy of gentleness and kindness, like it goes deep, and that's what we are perceiving. Now, somebody else on the outside might look at this slide and really not even think about any of these things because they don't know the historical context behind what the experience specifically is for dark-skinned women in America, right? Yeah. And that's why these conversations are so important.
Yeah.
Prowess, what you got?
Totally.
The ball.
Yes,
right?
Totally agree with that. I feel like there is also that issue around, being able to when you normalize something, when something like this is depicted, then it becomes normalized and then it becomes a trend. So it's really important to kind of address it and be able to, have some sort of baseline to be able to say this is not the right pathway to go, that there's a flaw in this representation. And Kylie talking about the intersectionality piece, so important to this because it's, we are still seen very monolithic in a lot of culture, period. BIPOC audiences, right? There's not a lot of like, you can be Native American, Hispanic, and Black all at the same time. It's just racially ambiguous. So, when it comes to gender, there's even more of that. But I feel like it's putting that attention to detail and then sort of forcing conversations around it and questioning what is then portrayed. So you don't want this to be normalized in the media. And if something like this becomes like, oh, I saw it. And just like Kylie, I did the same thing. I did not see this as problematic upon first view, which then means it was normalized for me. And right, and I'm someone who is constantly sort of viewing images through that lens or through a lens where I'm looking for problematic things, and I missed it. So I think that's a perfect example for me of like how we have to rationalize. The critique is always important, and I don't, I feel like that can't be taken aside where people say, oh, well, why are you always critiquing, or why is there always commentary? Because we have to be constantly really evaluating whether these depictions are representative of what reality is or not.
Right. And I just wanted to take this second. You guys are so cute in the chats. Thank you for like interacting in there. That's awesome. We see your comments.
We see you. Yes. We see you. Thank you. And I see some family in the chat.
Yes. Hi, fam.
Yeah, I see some family. I see the Paladin. By the way, Paladin, who killed it on Thursday.
Yes, Paladin, you did
wonderful job on Thursday. I saw Is that Cooper?
I saw that.
Cooper? Sorry. And then of course Shubs. Of course, Shubs. Like Shubs been going hard since the first piece of content today. It was great. Like Shubzilla. Okay, I want to give a special thanks to Shubzilla real quick.
Please do.
Cracking me up during the Tazbot panel. Cracking me up during she was saying like this person had the squat, like just like Princess Peach had a squat that could supersede all of our squats, like the yogi squat. It was great. And then, oh look, there's only one Ronin in there too.
Right.
And so, yeah, we got some family in here. And of course, Twill is monitoring because Twill's doing an amazing job.
Right. Thank you.
Y'all
hanging in there for these
and they're holding
conversation.
Y'all are holding us down. I guess this is a good time to also let you guys, if you have any questions or anything that you would like us to elaborate on, please feel free to ask. I know this is a weird, vulnerable conversation that you're like, how do I ask this? I don't want to offend anybody, but this is the space to do it. Like I've talked about this in other panels before at MAGWest. This is the time to do it. Like there's not going to be any harm done if you're asking any questions. So please do. We're more than happy to help you. And also another thing is, we're not, I don't want to say we're not experts, but I want to say like anything that we try to help you through with these questions too, like we're just trying to tell you through our own experience. So like
universal expert, darling, bring all of your problems to me. I have all the answers. Too smart.
You are the oracle.
In my house.
You are the oracle.
Kylie's the expert. So yeah.
Here's your spoon. I have made cookies.
Oh my God. All right. So moving along. Hello.
Mr.
My goodness.
It's only
Popo bombing the panel. Popo. Listen, we talked about your character design. Why are you still here? We'll get to you.
Yeah.
So this is also a reminder, like after all the talks with like, just like perception into fiction and also femininity into scenarios, like we want to just make sure that like, it's not just the nerd community that needs work sometimes, maybe all the time. Like we all know the nuances that happen on Twitch. There was also a TikTok blackout, meaning that like all Black creators just said, we had enough of this. We're not getting the credit that we want and we're going to stop. We've also seen things with like, the release of God of War, the God of War Ragnarok trailer, where Layla Delon, who is the voice actor for Angrboda, who's supposed to be the wife of Loki, was like a Black girl and then immediately was like whitewashed because she wasn't Norse enough. And so sure, the nerd community needs to work, but also all communities need work because this is what the main narrative is. So like, I know, quick warning, like there is a news, just to be clear, no one was hurt by this picture, but physically, emotionally, like this was a NASCAR driver who went to his area and found this in his area. And he's like, what gives? Also, Darian Hunt, who was a cosplayer, he was just minding his own business. And then someone said he looked suspicious as Mugen because he was running around with a sword. And even when the cops went to go talk to him, they said that he was intimidating him when that was not the truth. So like, we're still fighting our fights in this area of life, but also remember like these things articulate to a wider spectrum and it's a collective experience. It's not an individual experience. So it's just, this is the reality that we're trying to let you guys know that this is still happening and trust. I know that there's lots of communities that are trying to work on it, like DEI practices are improving. That there is a right step that is happening. And so I'm really happy to see that there are right steps happening, but it's still not changing the entire thing. So like, I just want to make it very clear that we're still fighting too.
Yes. And also I think this slide in particular is so important because it reminds us that this conversation about creating a safe space within our own like blurred communities, within nerd communities in general, is because it's a space that is needed. The stress that is outside of this space is so real. The fear of physical harm, emotional harm, like the microaggressions that everybody is facing everywhere. We all are facing microaggressions. Just some of these microaggressions are pecking harder than others. And as a person of color, having a safe space to go to just becomes that much more important, especially as we've seen these past few years, COVID, people isolating and their communities becoming more and more online, and that this is where they're getting their social interactions and their support from. Making sure that we have safe spaces to go to and that we are here for one another is that much more important. Like, honestly, it really is.
Yeah. So
I'll let you sit with that heaviness.
I know it got a little heavy in the room.
Moment of silence.
Okay.
Oh, never mind.
Never mind.
It's not heavy anymore.
It's not heavy anymore.
Popo been lifting that heavy ass.
You're the glow up. Yes.
Like, you will pay attention to me.
You will pay attention
took my shirt
to
off.
me.
Yeah, exactly.
So overcoming. So how do we get ourselves to be perceived differently than what society is trying to bog us down to be? So I just want to celebrate, especially within the nerdverse, the nerd kingdom, the nerdum. What do we want to call this? That we have some individuals who've been kind of like basically just taking their torches and saying, I have a bright light here, and it's been wonderful. So like, first and foremost, I want to thank but celebrate King Vader and his friends. Celebration. And so, you know, as you guys may know, King Vader is very, very famous for like his film direction, cosplaying as all these different characters. I've seen him as All Might, done some Naruto skits. Like, he's just done skits on skits on skits on skits. And it's been hilarious and so funny. And him with like people like Mark Phillips, as well as Pierre Steps, like they're killing the game in LA right now. And like, they're really changing the narrative of what's possible and how to transcend past what is thought of the Black community again. And when I say again, what I mean is like, he's not sitting there being like, I'm a Black man and I just need to transcend. No, this is his own authentic self. Like, he's trying to be his own authentic self in these spaces. He pulls in his friends,
his community, the people that are in his skits, like the support. That's what I just am so floored by. Like, not even just the technical skill, right? Because his videos and skits, they are very like well done technically. But for me, it's just the inclusivity. Like, all of these people who I know are just like in his area, in his space, and he brought them all together for all of these great projects and all of these like interwoven fandoms that everybody has and shares. I think this is really great. That sense of community is so needed.
Yeah. And then Proust, tell us about Dart. I always butcher the name.
So Dart Stagio.
Stagio. Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Proust, tell us.
Which is the first African-American, well, it's the first American animation studio in Japan, but the founders are twin brothers, Artel and Darnell Isom, who were both Black. They were in Jay-Z and Pharrell's Entrepreneur music video, if you saw you saw that. But it's just about the fact of, right, like now there is that conversation has happened around inclusivity from the creator and the actual publishing side around, like, we're in the industry, we're able to shape this. Black animators being in that space is so important, because it's right, we have that dual lens of like, we have to be both things. We have to be us, and then we also see ourselves in this content. So it's important to see it from that space, that differentiation of the themes and the storylines. It's not just the character depiction.
Exactly.
And like, just a cute story about their name, the actual name of their studio. So they named it by combining two things. The first one was a saying, Shitaji ga daiji, which was like, the foundation is important. So kind of like totally fits into our panel, right? The foundation is important, and the things that you build upon and the growth that you have, the trajectory that you can see is all built on like where you're starting and like the people that are creating and including in this space, right? So I thought, hey, like, that's awesome that you would have that as like the core of your studio and the work that they're doing. And then just the latter part of it was like, a combination of shitaji, which is like kanji for studio, and like just the Japanese word for studio. And when you look at it all together, it's like the foundation of art, because like kanji will oftentimes like mean a multitude of things. And so it's just like the foundation is important, and like how do you build on this foundation? And you do it through art. And so it's just like, that's so incredible. You guys,
It really is.
you guys are doing great. Thank you.
Yes.
And that has been the truth, right? Art influences life. Life imitates art. And we want to see a better future for each other, then we have to literally create it. It's what we see. It's what we like imbue in ourselves and what we take into the outside world. Oh,
yes.
the feelings, guys, all the feelings. Believe it.
And then also to keep talking about like, you know, the subjects that we talked about, like, you know, femininity, feeling feminine and all that stuff. Like, let's look at, you know, Shuri to Danielle McRae to Samus.
All the Black women glow up. Hey,
glow up. But
hey,
also,
hey.
like, let's also talk about how, like, you know, the universe just says, like, you know, the stereotypes of the Black community, like they won't finish school, all that stuff. Samus has a PhD and is also a rap artist. So can we also celebrate that is transcending what people are trying to categorize us as for real?
Or that hip hop is somehow only equated with like street violence and gangs. Just like
not at all.
Not at all. That's no longer the case. Yeah, it's carving out the new niche and the idea around, like, again, what we truly are has to be represented, that we are so diverse and there's subcultural movements even within Blackness, right? Like, yeah. So all of those things have to be portrayed and resonate.
Right. So somebody want to tell us, like, prowess, who are you? What do you do?
What you doing here?
So I am also an MC as well, and producer. And I, you know, for me, I feel like there's the essence of being able to put all the things that I love in the music that I do, but also that means that I get to shape a lot of what comes after me, and what I say, it has power, right? So I consume and then I create. And so I feel like there is also the responsibility of content creators to make sure that we are representative and that we create, you know, narratives that are important for us, because our stories are not in a bubble. They're definitely allowing people to experience it. And when people say they want escapism, there's no better way to do that than with content creation. So I feel like you're getting that passion for the creation, but like, this is a space that we've been in for so long, and it's no longer being in exile, right? Like, we have made these spaces now. We have created the themes. There's camaraderie. There's, you know, we've got people. We've got a mass, and so we've got to spread that out.
Exactly. No, and snaps. This is us. So, and also continuing on with other notable folks within the community, we got, you know, Destiny Senpai, who is the podcast lead for Getting Animated. Yep. You saw him here this weekend. Navy Montel, aka the Blerds himself. I believe he's in the chat somewhere.
Montel!
Give the love up. He did a couple did some panels, ran some interviews, got along with the kids.
Like, seriously, you want to talk about somebody like guiding and creating a community? Navy Montel, Blerds extraordinaire. He has a podcast. If you're on his Instagram, he is constantly shouting out other creators, having real conversations. And when I tell you, like, this man is someone who will just like pop up and sprinkle positivity in your feed.
Yep.
Just all day, every day. Like, I've been able to message him even about like questions I had when we first were putting this presentation together. Like, he was somebody that I went to and reached out to him, just like the wealth of knowledge that this man has and the willingness and generosity that he has to share with the people that come to him. Like,
he's awesome. Bothering us. And we got to Rapner, who's also a nerdcore mentor,
peer extraordinaire.
So like, yeah. And, you know, these are just like very, like, this is so very few examples of the greatness that we're able to contribute to the community, like the nerd community, with transcending, like I said, the perception. And so it's like, I don't know how to say this, but it's like, it's time that the underestimation is done. It's stopped.
Yeah.
Think about, like Megan Thee Stallion on magazine covers that are sold across the world, highlighting her adoration of like My Hero Academia, or Pharrell Williams and like the clothing collection that he launched, and Michael B. Jordan, who's a Naruto fan, and like all these things are heavily influenced in everything that we're doing. We have on here the Sailor Moon fan club, like Black Anime Club, like these are all things that are now, we have dedicated spaces where we can have a fan base around us to help propel some of these things.
Exactly. So we're getting down to our last 5 minutes. Again, if anybody has any questions, I did see some questions about what our favorite colors are. I like rose gold, honestly. Like if you guys want to talk about your favorite colors real quick.
Like colors are so hard for me.
Purple is mine. I normally do a lot of purple. I mean, I could show you like right in my face. I got a lot of purple, but yeah. The rose gold.
That's like not blue.
Like lime green. Oh, I love like a really bright green and like bright blues. I'm just way to ruin my joke, V.
I know, I'm the worst.
Sometimes, V.
So a couple of things, we're getting down to the last moments, but if you guys want to follow Lady Blerds Sings the Blues, we are a podcast. We do regularly post. There hasn't been something the last few weeks. Life got busy.
Extra busy.
Yeah, I mean, we do got our normal 9 to 5s, so this is a side passion project, but we got Kylie Toosmart here as Toosmart Kai, or sometimes Kylie Toosmart on the Instagrams or the Twitter. We got my name is Prowess, that for some reason I mistitled her as sometimes V. That's because a big my bad.
Like sometimes you're V, sometimes I'm V.
That's sometimes you're V.
Sometimes we're all V.
But we got Prowess the Testament here, hailing from the East Coast. So I'm glad that Prowess is able to tune in and tunes in regularly. And then you got me here, sometimes V, sometimes _V. You can listen to our catalog on your favorite podcast app, but some of the mainstream ones is like SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Pods, at Lady Blerds Podcast. And you can also find us on YouTube.
Look at our cute faces.
Look at Right. So last but not least, we forgot.
Oh gosh, we forgot.
We got to give a quick rundown before we get kicked off by the broadcast ops. So questions, concerns. Mr. Popo. Let's go.
Lego.
Okay, so let's talk about Mr. Popo real quick. He's usually a meme. He is the meme. So like, let's just say like, he is a guardian servant in Dragon Ball Z, but he's also a god. It's weird where he's holy, but he's still a servant. And that's the thing that gets under our skin is like, yeah, he's made fun of for the big eyes, the big lips, obviously looks like a gollywog, but like the fact that he is reinforced as the narrative that we're trying to avoid here. So he has a lifelong duty to protect Earth, but if Kami dies, which he did, I think Piccolo ate him.
Yeah.
He ate him as a little snack, like some jerky, some Namek jerky.
Namek jerky.
Fava beans and a nice
They'll find us.
That fava beans came in handy.
100%.
Yeah, but the reason why I have this like kind of like servant here underneath from like Django Unchained that you guys probably remember, Samuel L. Jackson did a wonderful job and we all hated him.
We all hated him.
But yeah, it's very similar dynamic where Popo just thinks forever and ever that he's just a servant and he doesn't have any capacity to be a god. Or the main god. So it's just like one of those things, again, we just want to be beyond, but we do, as much as it sucks that he has the gollywog features, we do want to make sure that that's what Popo's role was. He wasn't just like hanging out being like, hey, Kami, I'm just here to hang out in the hyperbolic time chamber and torture people in the bridge. So, but yeah, I think that comes to a conclusion of our presentation.
Yeah, thank you for coming
to
our MAGWest talk.
Yeah, and thanks MAGWest for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, this was, again, this is not an easy subject to talk about. So I'm really happy that with open hearts that you guys were you allowed us to talk about this. So yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Oh no.
Oh no.
And I think that's it. You guys can sign us off.
We love you. Goodbye.
Bye. Later.
He hasn't given us a cease and desist yet, so it's still fair. And it's satire, it's derivative, like all that stuff.
He sent lawyers to the bar, but I just ignored it.
The amount of detail I put into the fingernails and the nipples.
So how many nipples do cats have?
I think I put his 2 real nipples, like his like peck nipples, and then I think I put another 3 on either side, if I remember correctly.
Okay, so at least I think when we were looking this up, it's something like cats can have like 5 to 12 nipples or something. There's no like standard number. It's just kind of whatever.
Yeah.